Good to have a response. Let me welcome you to this session, which will be a conversation with His Excellency, Minister Mohammed Al-Khulaifi, the Minister of State from the Foreign Affairs of Qatar.
مرحبا دكتورة.
تشرفنا.
Thank you.
Sorry, it got complicated with all the different gadgets I've been given. Your Excellency, it's absolutely wonderful to have you here with us today, and thank you for taking the time to come to GLOBSEC, to Prague, for this conversation. Let me begin with you with a very broad question. The Middle East is at the throes of probably one of the most significant crises it has faced in, let's say, in its contemporary history. We've been in a situation where we're quickly seem to be consistently spiraling towards an all-out conflict, altercations between an exchange of fire, direct exchange of fire between Iran and Israel, the horrific toll of the war on Gaza that has now lasted 10 months, the front with Lebanon that has seen the destruction of significant parts of the border area with Lebanon, citizens displaced on both sides of the border. I think something like 80,000 Israeli citizens from the north, similar amount, about 90,000 from the south in Lebanon, Lebanese citizens. It's getting worse and worse, let's put it this way. So let me begin with a kind of a broader question to you on the potential ripple effects of the Israel war on Gaza, the prospects for a region-wide escalation that could pull in global powers. I mean, we haven't seen this amount of military presence in the Mediterranean as we're seeing today, multiple warships, US and others. What leverage does the US effectively have, and is it using this full leverage to both end the war on Gaza as well as contain its spread?
Thank you very much, Doctora, for your kind introduction. I'm delighted to be here, and I thank the organizers for inviting me in this important forum. It's my first time in Prague, this wonderful city of long-standing history and innovation, which I'm really delighted, and this is not going to be my last trip to Prague. Regarding your questions, you've asked a very important question about our region. It is unfortunate and also worrying when we are seeing the expansion in the number of conflicts in our region. The situation in Gaza occupies most of our time and efforts these days. It stands at the top of the world's agenda. It attracts everyone. And this is really applies the idea that conflict sometimes doesn't have borders. And everyone is affected by the conflicts. I mean, we never thought that the war in Ukraine, for example, would have its impact in the Middle East and in Africa when it comes to the food security and other aspects as well. So you can see that this is a role of everyone should be involved in those conflicts. Gaza, more specifically, Doctora, as you know, Qatar has an extensive amount of years of experience in the field of mediation. More than 25 years has been dedicated to this specifically peaceful methods of resolving conflicts. Statistically, mediation has been classified as the second most used peaceful methods of peaceful resolution as a tool, following up direct negotiation. So that tells you that people and leaders tend to refer to more flexible methods in resolving conflicts rather than others that are not categorized as flexible, such as, for example, judicial process. And therefore, I think it is, this is considered one of the most complicated and difficult cases that Qatar has engaged in since the first hours of the conflict. After the incident itself, we've established a task force in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
On October,
following October 7,
yes.
Following October 7, to work with international partners to de-escalate the tension. We realized that this conflict is not similar to the previous conflict, and as you know, this is not an old case, the conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis. But we realize that this has its own aspects that distinguish this conflict from the previous ones. We've engaged heavily with partners. We've engaged with our co-mediators on the hostage release track. And we've managed in the last November to secure a pause. Unfortunately, that pause did not extend 7 days with the release of 109 hostages and a number also of detainees. Our efforts continues to today. And our engagement is continuous. We're working around the clock in this very difficult case. And I'm saying difficult for two main reasons. The first one is that the military operations on the grounds automatically impact the negotiation table. It makes our task extremely difficult. Any developments on the ground whatsoever, either at the Gaza Strip or in the region, impacts the efforts of the mediators. And the second reason, which I find it extremely difficult, and as mediator I would say this, that the term trust does not exist in the parties' dictionaries. I'll put it this way. And therefore, it makes it difficult for the mediator to propose solid and better initiatives for the parties to reach an agreement and bring the parties closer to each other. And therefore, all of those aspects are challenging. However, we remain steadfast and committed to our efforts, hoping that we can add value to this case. Now, I know that your question is very general and broad, that touched base on the Middle East generally, but this is only an example of the situation in Gaza.
Thank you. Let me ask you then just to zoom in a bit more. I mean, Gaza, 10 months of war, 40,000 dead, thousands, 80, 90,000 injured, catastrophic humanitarian situation. 90 Israeli hostages remain. What are the obstacles to a ceasefire? Why can't we stop the bloodshed and move to the next phase? You're the key mediator, one of the key mediators.
If the parties are going to continue to favor the military options over the peaceful options, then definitely this horrific outcome would be the situation currently. And therefore, I think it's important to really favor and providing more tolerance to the mediation that has been provided for the parties on the table. Now, our efforts are continuous, as I mentioned to you, that in a very difficult and complicated case, that the parties are still apart in many of the points, but we're still, in each day, trying to bridge the two sides closer to each other to really reach that agreement that we believe that will be, for the best of everyone. Mainly, the civilians, as you said, are the first victim in this conflict.
I mean, the toll it has taken continues to be horrific. And Gaza's almost razed to the ground. So which brings me to two related questions. What was the impact of the twin assassinations that we saw in Beirut and in Tehran of Kerr and Ismail Haniyeh on the ceasefire negotiations, especially as one of the hostages who unfortunately was killed and was discovered yesterday, apparently, or two of them actually, were on the list that should have been released in July. At the same time, again, we're seeing an increasing toll on human life in Gaza, on Palestinians in Gaza. We're seeing an expansion of the conflict to Jerusalem and the West Bank. Where is this going? What is the...
Doctora, any escalation whatsoever, including the assassination of the members of the negotiating parties, are going to aggravate the situation and makes our task extremely difficult. This is a reality that we're facing, and this is a reality that we've been reflecting to the parties on the negotiation table, that lives are at stake And it's important that we get this agreement as soon as possible to save as much lives as possible.
Let me ask you then a final question on the status of the ceasefire. I think the question on everyone's minds is why, I mean, do both parties want an actual ceasefire? Especially in light of leaks by the negotiating team themselves regarding the Israeli Prime Minister's constantly changing goalposts. Now we're seeing discussions around Rafah, the Philly corridor. So what are the main sticking points in this sense for a ceasefire? And what is the impact also? I mean, can we talk a bit about the West Bank and Jerusalem as well?
Sure, it needs to be covered as a one complete picture. We cannot deal with Gaza without dealing with East Jerusalem and the West Bank as well. Especially when we're talking about the day after. We're talking about the governance, the future of governance when it comes to the Gaza situation. And therefore, I think it's all very much linked and attached to each other. And more efforts need to be done in this line. What we did as a regional Arabic group, we have established what we call by the regional contact group to work heavily on establishing an action plan that will allow us at least to see the light at the end of the tunnel, the future for the Palestinian people, the stability when it comes to the governance situation, the security level when it comes to all countries in the region. And therefore, there are so many important questions, but difficult answers, that needs thorough engagements, more work, and more collaboration at the highest level between the important stakeholders in that file. You've mentioned in your early introduction about the United States. The United States is an important strategic partner for us. And they've been an important mediator as well with us in this case. So the more that we engage with our partners, the better that can shape up that reality. I'm saying this taking into consideration as well the challenges that we're facing on the grounds when it comes to the consensus, when it comes to the full support to this. So many of those points that are always in our minds but needs even thorough engagement and further collaboration. So you mentioned a second point related to, remind me,
No, I was talking about we've seen now an expansion in the violence to the West Bank,
yes,
which actually
yes.
began prior to October 7th.
Yes, indeed.
You know, the government, the Minister of Interior in Israel today, the government itself is the most right-wing, let's say, government that has the country's ever seen.
Indeed.
So what we've seen is a real expansion of the conflict into Gaza, into the West Bank. It's a powder keg. We've seen statements by different Israeli security and political elite talking about the transfer of Palestinians from both Gaza and from the West Bank. I mean, all of this, what does this do to, what are the prospects for the two-state solution when those sitting around the table are saying, we don't want that? If we're going to talk about the day after, and what you're saying is we cannot de-link the governance of Gaza from the West Bank, this is something that Israel is rejecting. So if it's not a two-state solution, it's not a one-state solution, what is the solution then? And what does this mean for peace and prosperity and stability in the region?
It's definitely concerning to us. And this is definitely going to aggravate the situation rather than allowing us to reach some sort of an agreement, and a peaceful agreement in this area. As I mentioned to you earlier, Doctora, any aggravation whatsoever directly impact the major objective. If the major objective is the two-state solution, then the following question would be, what is the action plan for the two-state solution? I mean, we've been hearing from several officials about their full support to the two-state solution. The problem that we're facing currently is that we need a full comprehensive action plan for the two-state solution that will be followed and respected by all parties, including Israel. This is something that we've been facing as a major challenge in the past years. I'll be also as blunt and transparent with you today, Doctora. This case specifically is not a new case. The Palestinian case is not a new one. It's been in the shelf for several times, put it back again to the desk and back again to the shelf. I say to my colleagues when we were discussing and deliberating this case internally, this is a golden opportunity for us to think for a long-lasting solution for the Palestinian cause. If we're tolerating the temporary solution over the long-lasting solution, the conflicts will never go away. Peace will be so far away from us. And therefore, I think it's important for us not to put this file back again to the shelf and find and work on it day and night to find a permanent and a lasting solution for this case.
So you believe a two-state solution is still possible?
As a mediator, I need to be optimistic. And I always tell even my students at the university that if a mediator is pessimistic, then it's a case closed. You don't need to worry so much and put more efforts, I think, in the mediation itself. We remain committed. We remain hopeful that the more that we talk to the parties, the more that we engage, and the more that we propose positive initiatives for the best of the people, the better the situation will be.
Okay. Let me turn to Syria and Lebanon. What do you make of the normalization initiatives with the Assad regime, including more calls and actions by some European countries now, as well as the rapprochement between Syria and Turkey?
So this is also an important case in our MENA region. We strongly support the political solution of the Syrian case. We support even all the United Nations Security Council resolutions that has been adopted. It's important that those resolutions are put into action, which we don't see currently when it comes to our situation. Our position remains the same in Qatar, calling for a full implementation of this resolution and improving, honestly, the lives of the people. The people are the victim. The people of Syria are the victim of the current actions. And therefore, I think more need to be done by the regime for the people of Syria.
Let me move to Lebanon. The current escalatory trajectory. Can you comment a bit on this, the ongoing conflict between Hezbollah and Israel, and the prospect of this escalating into something much more than it currently is? And just to tag onto this, just a question in terms of what would a post-Gaza scenario for Lebanon look like? I mean, Qatar is part of the quintet that includes Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the US, and France, that is trying to mediate not only a presidential election, the country's been in a political deadlock for more than a year and something now, but to also try and find a way out of the economic and financial crisis that began in 2019.
As I mentioned to you previously, I think what really worries us about the conflict in Gaza is the possibility for the spillover beyond the Gaza Strip. That conflict, that flame, is reaching out to other countries as well, and Lebanon is one of them. And therefore, we're always calling for de-escalations, calling for favoring the voice of wisdom for de-escalating the conflicts in the region. And therefore, I think Lebanon is not far away from that conflict. The instability within Lebanon currently, when it comes to the political situation, automatically impact the decision of Lebanon and other cases, and that worries us. Qatar is part, as you mentioned, of the Quint, and we're actively cooperating with our partners on finding a breakthrough in this political deadlock. I think I will also remain hopeful that there are always important efforts that need to be taken here. And Qatar will never hesitate to continue showing our full support to Lebanon and the Lebanese people. And as you know, Qatar, when it comes to our full support to the army, is continuous, and this is due to our great care for the security and stability of Lebanon, Lebanese people.
What would it take for the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel to stop now?
As I mentioned to you, the case is very much attached as well to the case in Gaza. And this applies not only in Lebanon, but applies also in the Red Sea and the other escalations that we see in the region. And therefore, there is no alternative to a ceasefire agreement. There is no alternative even when we talk about the governance, even when we touch base on the situation in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. It's all attached to what is going to happen in Gaza. And therefore, that's why we're working, as I mentioned to you, around the clock, hoping that we can achieve this ceasefire.
So basically, the first step towards a regional de-escalation, what I'm hearing you say is the first step towards a regional de-escalation is a ceasefire in Gaza, which would automatically then apply to other fronts that have opened up since the conflict began with Gaza on October 8th.
I believe so. I definitely believe so.
So let me then turn to the more kind of, again, broader regional dynamics. Do you envision a new regional security architecture that also includes Iran in this case? Because Iran, and its partners, not all our proxies, but also partners across the region, will play an important role in this. And do you think such a regional security architecture would be capable of addressing regional tensions and conflict? If yes, what would it look like?
I think it's the responsibilities of all regional countries, not necessarily Iran. Iran is an important regional actor. For us, Iran is a neighbor, and we believe strongly in the method of dialogue and transparency in dealing with those matters with the Iranian Authority. And therefore, our thorough engagement with Iran has resulted positively in many occasions, including the times where Qatar played as a mediator between Iran from one side and other countries from other sides.
Including the United States.
Including the United States recently. And that's as I mentioned to you, is simply the cornerstone of our foreign policy, is to work and participate actively in the peacemaking process in the region.
It's important to leverage all these relationships. Let me just do a follow-up on this. There's been a notable absence of a kind of a broadly agreed on Arab initiative to end the conflict and to kind of draw a clear vision for peace in the region, similar to the 2002 Arab Peace Plan that talked about land for peace, which was launched from Beirut, Lebanon. So we haven't seen anything similar emerge at this moment. What are the conditions that can bring about such an emergence and a convergence between the different Arab countries? I mean, many are involved in different ways. Yourself, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others are involved in different ways, but not necessarily everyone's pushing in the same direction.
So we have several cases that we're dealing with, and we're always investing in every opportunity we're having to cooperate and coordinate with our regional partners. As you know, we have a strong regional institutions, the GCC. We've been using this platform for several times to enhance the regional securities in all aspects. So we're doing our parts to coordinate and to build up that momentum. If you're talking at the Arab level, then there is the Arab League. But I think further coordinations are always needed, and therefore it's unfortunate that our Middle East is filled with several and difficult conflicts from here and there, but there's always an opportunity for mediators and a group of interested countries to play an active role in preserving peace in those areas.
Is the Arab League still viable?
It is there. It's existing, and there are several discussions that's happening under that umbrella. But as I mentioned to you, the complexity of those different cases, it demands that we think creatively of how can we deal with those cases and how can we come up with creative solutions that can resolve those conflicts. And I repeat the same message that I mentioned previously. We should be focused on long-lasting solutions for those cases, not temporary solutions. We've engaged personally, I'm talking about Qatar here, we've engaged several times for several years in the conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Unfortunately, our efforts does not exceed the ceasefire, which does not put an end to the actual cause. And therefore, I think we have a golden opportunity in front of us to really unite our efforts in bringing more lasting, long peace in that area. That involves the international stakeholders, that they also need to cooperate with us and get involved and unite with us in bringing that action plan that I was talking about.
It's a tough one.
Indeed.
Especially, I mean, again, maybe I should ask this question: what are the conditions that would bring about, conversions on an agreement similar to the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative?
as I mentioned to you, we need further initiatives, and we need more opportunities similar to such that will allow us really to unite our efforts on that piece. Gaza is one of those examples. As soon as the matter happens, we unite as a regional contact group, hoping that we can come up with or play our part as regional countries in bringing initiatives to the table. Now, there are a lot of challenges, yes. There are a lot of challenges on the grounds, but we need to work beyond those challenges so we can have better future.
Let me then move to the final question, which is the US is opposed by many countries in countries of the global south. Gaza has been actually a turning point in many ways because of the support that it has given to the blanket support that we've seen it give to Israel over the past 10 months, especially. It's become a factor of global realignment. Is there an alternate power broker that you see at this particular moment, or not?
As I mentioned to you previously, it is the responsibility of all. I think the case in Gaza demands the involvement of everyone. All the important stakeholders, that including the UK, France, the European Union, and others. I think there is always a room for each state to contribute positively to that work. And this will really help us to overcome those challenges that we faced in the past, which includes the governance issue, which includes the security issue when it comes to the Israelis' actions, and also when it comes to our international coordination at a higher level. I think more can be done in those aspects because the challenges are still today existing. And as I mentioned to you, when countries are deploying diplomacy, others are deploying troops. And the military, we don't believe in the military options. And the more that countries are favoring military interventions, and that does not only apply in Gaza, it applies in Sudan and other cases. When they are really favoring the military options over the peaceful diplomacy, then this is unfortunately what we're going to see. But we need to be committed to that task and do our role.
China, a role for China in this process?
It's a role for everyone.
We've seen it play an increasingly bigger role, at least on the diplomatic front. Is there more it can be doing?
We did see that, and we commend any efforts that can bring more peace and a resolution for the conflicts between countries. We've seen them mediating between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which is also a very good step in bringing peace and favoring dialogue between regional countries. I think this is the role of everyone. We need to be coordinated. We need to be, plan our work together, and making sure that we work systematically towards an action plan. And as I said to you, there's no time for talks now. It's time for action. It's important for us really to put things on documents and continue working over those plans. It's easy to say, difficult to do. I understand this. But if we're not doing our part as an active members of this international community, then who will do?
Can I just maybe ask you then if you can share with us concrete, what you're describing is the lack of also trust and confidence, and we were talking about this earlier. What are concrete confidence building measures that can be implemented today that can help bring about the vision you're describing? Not only in terms of peace in Gaza, resolution to the Palestinian-Israeli issue.
I think the thorough engagement between the parties are essential. One of the most difficult mediation sessions we had in the past is what we call by the indirect negotiation, when we have the two parties in separate rooms. They don't talk to each other, they don't see each other, but they criticize each other on the media. That does not help the case itself. And therefore, I think building that trust and building the bridges between the two sides are the responsibilities of states that are willing to take up that responsibility. Qatar is one of them. This is a role that we've taken, and we will continue to do in the future.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. This was a fascinating conversation.
Delighted.
I look forward to many more. I've been tasked with telling you that there are refreshments in the foyer, and the next session, Black Sea Security, will start in half an hour. Thank you.
Thanks.